Hello once more and welcome back to Sudrian Spotlight. This week we are heading east, over to the mainland, where the Barrow Hematite Steel Company has its works. This was a real company based in Barrow, one of the major industries of the town. The ironworks closed in 1963, while the neighbouring steelworks lasted until the 1980s. They were both sited adjacent to where the fictional North Western Railway crossed the Walney Channel and onto the mainland, so I feel justified in including them in the Sudrian Histories universe. Any excuse to have more industrial locomotives, really. The fortunes of this fictitious version of the works are a little better. It'll close about 10 years later than the real-life counterpart, and production will be larger, employing more internal use locos within the actual works. One of these is Hunslet 48150 class No.14. The 48150s are the grandfathers to the well-known austerities and J94s. They had 18-inch cylinders and 4-foot diameter wheels. 16 of this class were built. They all worked in steelworks, and one, named Jessie, is preserved. Funnily enough, Jessie spent some years as a Thomas the Tank engine lookalike, but has now been restored to her saddle tank form. She was unusual among her classmates for having the larger austerity-style bunker and shallow buffer beams, whereas most of them had the distinctive angled bunker and large beefy buffer beams. The 50550 class was developed from these locos, mainly for the ironstone industry, and that design was in turn adapted into the austerities. The 48150 seemed like the perfect loco to work at my steelworks, and with there being a ready supply of Hornby austerities on the market, the conversion was a tempting one. To begin with, the front of the saddle tank was chopped off, saving the front face to glue back on later. The diagonal handrail on the saddle tank was removed and smoothed over. At the same time, the bunker rear was sawn off at an angle and glued back on, and the front windows were filled in, then smoothed off and re-drilled to have circular ones instead. The buffer beams were extended by adding reinforcing strips to the back and cutting a piece of styrene sheet for the lower portion. The horrible mould line that runs down the tank is what really lets the Hornby model down, but by using a razor saw, the bottom of the saddle tank can be sawn off. The large cast weight is then glued into the saddle tank, and the lower tank portion attached permanently to the upper part. The top of the smoke box was made by finding a piece of plastic pipe about the right size, cutting a slot out of it, and then blending it into the lower smoke box saddle. I didn't have a suitable chimney at the time, so I cut the WD one in half and added some styrene tube to the middle, then built up the outside with filler, and filed and sanded it to shape. The lamp iron access hatch at the rear of the cab was also filed smooth. These locos were never designed to operate on the main line, so had no top lamp iron. The livery is a burgundy red with wasp stripes front and rear. These were done by carefully masking and spraying the black over the yellow. I wanted to use scale 3-link couplings for this loco rather than my usual KDs to keep the industrial look, and this required some fairly big chunks hacking out of the chassis block to fit the springs behind. The 4-foot 3-inch wheels of the austerity have been replaced with the 4-foot wheels from the old tooling Terrier model, a simple modification that helps set it off nicely. The loco is battery powered and radio controlled. The battery sits in this little gap in the chassis, where the pickup plate used to be. Remote control needs no pickups, so the space was very handy to have. The receiver meanwhile is in the smoke box. It just about fits when the wires are tidied up. Here's a little clip of the loco under test on RC. On full power it runs for about 32 minutes flat out, before needing recharging, which is not too bad for an older style motor such as this. The charging port and on-off switch are located under the bunker, somewhat hidden by the cab steps. I really love how this loco came out, and I think it captures the look of the class well. I'm hoping to do a more in-depth look at improving the Hornby austerity. With the arrival of EFE Rail's version on the market, there may be more opportunities for bashing these locos into better detailed versions quite cheaply. So then, that's the model. What about number 14? I have it as one of a pair built in 1944 to cope with wartime demands, as were many of the class, and it soldiers away in grubby and rough surroundings for 30 years until the end of steam traction at the works, being broken up in 1974. Maybe it'll appear on the NWR from time to time, receiving maintenance at Crovan's Gate or shunting the exchange sidings at Barrow perhaps. As always, I hope you've enjoyed this Spotlight episode. There's plenty more where that came from, including main, branch line and more industrial locos. If you haven't done so already, then why not follow Railway Mania on Facebook, Instagram or Twitter to keep up with what's going on. Thank you for watching. Sudrian Spotlight will return again soon.